Okay, great. All right. Right. So as I was saying, so for the next assessment, I'm not going to go all Squid Games on you again and make you have to pick symbols. You are fully open to choose. Well, you need to choose the building that you used for your assignment too, but you can choose any of the two environments that that we have here, right? So see if I can bring this up for you guys. Actually, I can just open it directly in I'm going to open it directly in TwinMotion. So I'm going to be using TwinMotion for this demonstration, but you know, it's kind of similar to Lumion, and I think I'm a more TwinMotion person anyway. So let's find the application here. All right, now I've downloaded the TwinMotion 2022.1, which is available now. All right. If you go to this is Epic Games website. No, not Epic Games. Unreal Engine, which is made by Epic Games. But I think, yeah, you got to go to unrealengine.com. There we go. And you just scroll down until you get to it, I guess. Where are you, TwinMotion? Oh, products. I don't normally go by this route. You know what? Just type
TwinMotion, sir.
Exactly. Just type TwinMotion and let Google do the rest. There we go. Oh, it's actually twinmotions.com. I didn't even know that they got their own website now. They used to have to go to
You used to have to go to Unreal Engine.
Right. I guess they're getting big now. All right, are bigger. So yeah, so
TwinMotion. Once you have TwinMotion downloaded, it will automatically pop up to get over to 2022.
Lovely. Yeah. Right. So that's the version that I'm using. I have used TwinMotion in the past. I don't normally use it for my productions, but you know, I use it for teaching, and I actually use it for design, for quick iteration. So if I'm working on a design and I want to show somebody or ask somebody or explore, like, you know, layouts for furniture or something, and I want it to be a bit more visual, I would just throw it into TwinMotion. Actually, hold on a second. Actually, my favorite program for doing that is really Enscape. I find Enscape is a little quicker because I use Revit a lot. Because normally I don't produce in TwinMotion, so I just need something to kind of show somebody and say, hey, you know, what do you think of this layout? Is it good or is it bad? And guess what? You guys are working remotely, and a lot of you are using like BIM programs like Revit and so forth. So definitely one of these programs needs to be like your best friend, if it is not already your best friend. Whether it's Lumion, TwinMotion, or Enscape, or one of the new kids on the block. I don't remember what its name again. I think it's Cloud 7 or something. I don't remember that new one. Anyway, so this is where you download the TwinMotion from. I'm going to recommend this one because, as you know, TwinMotion is free and Lumion is not. So if you don't have Lumion, I mean, just download TwinMotion, make life easy. Enscape is also free, but Enscape has to work along with another application. I did give you the SketchUp version of the model, as you can see here. Come on. This thing has frozen. Okay, it's back. Right. So I did give you the SKP files. So if you want, you can go the route of SketchUp and Enscape if you want, or you can go SketchUp and TwinMotion, whichever one. I went the route of Max and TwinMotion, but it doesn't really matter. TwinMotion will take the FBX file that I give you directly, so you guys don't need to worry about that. You don't need to worry about that. All right. Now, I haven't placed the two environments on the mirror board as yet, but I do have them in my Google Drive, so I'm just gonna open them so that you can take a look at them. Okay, here we go. All right. So this is what you see when you first open up TwinMotion. What I'm going to focus on is not necessarily features of TwinMotion, but just general tips when you are creating your visualization, right? And this is when we're going to be using some cinematic techniques, rule of thirds, things that we learned so far. I'm going to apply them in this virtual world now. Okay, now the first thing we want to do is to go to import, or we can actually use this import button here. By the way, is there anybody here that is not familiar with TwinMotion's interface? Like you've never really used it before? You can go by the raising of your hand. Not familiar. Not so 3, 4. Okay, just 2 people. Okay.
I'm not familiar with it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so maybe it seems like the majority of you are familiar with the user interface. So I'm just going to touch on the interface very lightly, not too much. I mean, there are tons of videos out there that maybe even do a better job of explaining it. So I'm not going to focus too much in the user interface. But in a nutshell, TwinMotion is one of the main objective for TwinMotion is for you to have fast, iterative, tongue twister, to be able to see your architectural designs very quickly. It doesn't spend much time kind of bogged down in the whole visualization systems that you might find, for example, in, I guess, 3D Max and with V-Ray and what's that other one called, Corona and these things. Instead, it kind of exchanges a lot of those deep options for presets that's already set up for you and good to go. One might think that, okay, well, you have less options, so maybe you want to choose like very specific things. You may not have that option in TwinMotion, but for the vast majority of persons in the architectural space, whether you're the client or you're the designer, programs like TwinMotion and Lumion and Enscape, they will pretty much take care of 90% of your, or maybe 80 to 90% of what you want to show architecturally. If you put up a TwinMotion or a Lumion image and you put that beside an image from V-Ray, or nowadays they look so similar. I mean, maybe if you are a visualization person, you could tell, like I could tell if it's different, but to the client, an image is an image. Now, what you might find is that persons who work in an architectural firm might choose to use one of these fast turnaround programs, which is great. And I think it's perfectly tuned for that. As a matter of fact, I give TwinMotion the best rating because I think it's the most accessible. I think Lumion is still not free. It is still not free for students And I think it still costs a pretty penny. I think it's like what, 2,000 US for a Lumion license?
£2,000.
I don't want to think about it, sir.
Exactly. It's still a little bit expensive. And I mean, like, I can't think of a situation that would make me say, oh, definitely I would choose Lumion over TwinMotion. I mean, I understand Enscape because Enscape isn't really a standalone application, but yet still Enscape is cheap. Enscape is probably like what? I think it's like 300 US or 500 US. It's relatively cheap compared to Lumion. So, you know, I give TwinMotion my award for accessibility. And just so you know, some background information, as you guys know, Epic Games made Unreal Engine, and Unreal Engine makes countless games from like in the 80s all the way till today. And hey, have you guys seen the new Matrix that came out with Unreal, came out with a preview of the new Unreal Engine running?
You're talking the game, sir?
Not well, it's a game, it's like a demo.
Yeah, the demo one.
What's it called? It's called like Matrix
Experience something.
Yeah, like the Matrix experience. If you go to the Epic website, you should be able to see that. Trying to see if I can. I think this time you have to go to Epic Games, right? Yeah. And I think, no, you got to go to Unreal Engine. There we go.
It named like Unreal Engine 5 Experience or something.
Yeah, something like that. I'm going to do a search for it. I'm going to search for Matrix. Matrix Awakens and Unreal 5 Experience. Here we go. Right, so this is pretty cool, and this is all running in real time. This is like TwinMotion and Lumion real time. But of course, the big difference with Unreal Engine is that it's interactive. TwinMotion is getting there. We're going to look on some of the features of TwinMotion that recently came out in last year and this year that makes it a little bit more interactive, meaning you're not generating a video and sending to your clients. You're generating an interactive experience, and you can send to your clients and they can walk around and stuff like that. But it's not a game. It's not like this that you're watching now, which is an actual game where you move around and you shoot and you fly and all that kind of stuff. So that is where Unreal Engine really shines. And this is a pretty cool experience. Now, you can't experience it on a desktop yet. So you pretty much have to just watch like the YouTube video that has it here. And these are some clips for the YouTube video, right? But it is like really cool. For those of you who might think otherwise, you might think it's really scary because, wow, this is how video games is now looking real. Oh boy, we're in for a wild ride for the future. Now, of course, think of Unreal Engine as a cake or as a pizza, and Epic just took one slice of that pizza, right, and just made TwinMotion with it. So TwinMotion runs from Unreal Engine. It runs on the same engine as Unreal Engine, but without a whole bunch of the very highly complicated features that Unreal Engine has, and just gives you the bare bone of what you need for architectural visualization. That's a target area. We're going to kind of push the limits of what this can do with our movie in the final project, which will kind of stretch the limits and not just solely focus on, oh, here's a building, here's a floor plan here, you know, and you have to kind of make a story from it. Well, we soon cross that bridge, we don't reach there yet. But in the meantime, I'm just kind of telling you the roots of how this engine came about. So it runs off Unreal Engine, and very recently they released plugins that you can even connect it back to Unreal Engine ecosystem. Now, most of us here probably don't use Unreal Engine, which is fine. But because TwinMotion has like a bigger brother, it's a little bit more versatile, right? So think about if you are in an architectural firm, right? And let's say that you need to do a presentation on a building. You do your designs, everything, you have your BIM model, and you guys coming out of architecture school, you use programs like Revit and TwinMotion and Lumion. So you use TwinMotion to do a presentation of your model. But then let's say after this, which usually happens, there needs to be high quality visualizations generated to put in the news or for a groundbreaking ceremony. I mean, let me give you an example. So if you look at nowadays, when you have a project going up, I'll show you two I saw recently. One of them I saw was Belmont Road. Anybody saw the presentation for One Belmont Road? This is in Kingston, Jamaica.
I'll post on Instagram, but I never really went too far into the whole thing.
Right. But nowadays, when a building goes up, it's, the architectural services and plans and presentations is one thing, but then there's a whole lot of media circle, media coverage around the building, usually kind of advertising, especially to potential investors, what it has. So this was done by Virtuoso. I'm not sure if they did the visuals. Yeah, they did do the visuals locally in-house. I'm even proud to say it's actually a past student from CSA that actually focuses on visualizations. But if you look at this, it has pretty much all the information about the project. It has views. It tells you about the inside. It tells you about the architect. It has some of the plans here. So it's like a visual experience that takes, just the average architectural productions, site plan, floor plan, and all this, and turns it into a marketing package. And that marketing package is delivered in many ways. In this case, it's on a website. There's even a brochure that you can download. And this is what the premier architectural project turns into. So when you guys do the initial presentations in the office, companies might need more premium visuals to now create this marketing package from. And I can tell you from experience, a lot of times these guys have to start from scratch. So we have to take the plans and recreate the whole thing. Now, let's say you use a program like TwinMotion to do this. Well, if the firm that's doing the marketing uses an Unreal Engine, then they can connect to TwinMotion to take the production to a further higher level and so forth, right? So, so that would be one of the advantages where I still give TwinMotion the win. Lumion, everything is kind of trapped a little bit. Lumion is the end product. Everything you have is supposed to go into Lumion, and then it comes out of Lumion as images and animations, and that's it. But you can extend what you produce in TwinMotion even further. And I think that's, for me, why TwinMotion right now has a little edge over Lumion, though not many people would necessarily use that edge. Not much people are using Unreal Engine nowadays in architectural viz as well. Let me give you another example of that. So for example, this is one that
this is a real being.
Hold on. That's a video. I thought it was a website. Where did I put that website? Okay, here we go. Right. So this is one that that we worked on about 2 years back, right? And this is the Terranova Hotel visuals. And see, this is another package as well. Nowadays, when a piece of architecture goes up, there is a whole marketing segment that also goes up that has animations and images and, you know, full-on productions and all of these things. And a lot of times they don't really do this in-house. They work with persons that specialize in visualization to now focus on these additional aspects. So anyway, so I just want to kind of introduce you guys to now thinking about cinematography in architecture, because, and in the virtual world, that is what makes all of these images that we are seeing here, right? Okay. All right, so you know, that's a rough kind of idea of using TwinMotion. And as I say again, I'm really no expert on TwinMotion. I know the basics. Now by default, where is my alpha menu? Right. Okay, so by default, we have most of our options down here. My menu is not writing for some reason. Come on, let me just close this and open it back. All right. Lovely. Okay, right. So we have most of our options that's going to be down here. We have a menu to the left that's hidden currently and a menu to the right. And that is pretty much all where all of these settings are for TwinMotion, right? So on one hand, I like the simplicity of it. To open the menu to the left, you click this little arrow here, and you will get things like materials and options and animations and people and entourage and all that stuff. And on the menu to the right, it's mainly about statistical stuff. So it tells you, for example, like you can see how much the specs of your computer, how much memory you have, the frame rate. You can look at the different layers of objects that you have and all that stuff. And you can just minimize these like so. So that's pretty much the user interface. These icons down here are, think about it as your kind of production cycle. I like to think of them that way. And you kind of start work your way down the pack. So the first thing you do here, that's the first icon, is you import. Then you set up things like locations. No, well, not location. You do things like set like if you're going to have pathways for animations and different features. Then you set things like your location, and then it goes to production, and then you go to output. So you can kind of work your way from top to bottom with these icons here on the left. That's the kind of general notion behind it. So the first icon here is import. So I'm going to go to import. Now, in your case, you're going to have a FBX file working with that you use for your assignment 2. If you don't remember what building you selected, then you can head on over to the mirror board and just look for your name, whether your picture, and look what building you actually selected. But I'm expecting most people would remember what building they chose, because they did like a whole assignment with it. So it will be perhaps riveted in your brain by now. I don't see these images here, but I'm guessing it's in the same order. Okay, guys, so that's how you find what buildings you worked on. All right, so I'm going to go to import. I'm going to import some geometry. Oh, here it is in the background. Right now I have it on my computer. So there are 2 options for the site. I have one that's called a European city environment, and I have another one that's a residential site with a park. Both of them are pretty cool. The residential site with the park is a little big, so you have multiple positions that you could put your building in. Let me pick that one first since it's the most versatile. So you go to import. You might see an option here to fix UVs and texture. I didn't notice any issues, whether you click that icon or not, but I just normally click it by default because if there are any issues, it will fix it. And you're just going to choose import. And it might take a little while depending on the computer that you have. But they're not really that big. Now, these environments, I removed all the trees because trees tend to make things very heavy. Whatever program you use, you can place back your own trees and plants and stuff like that. The objective, yeah, question?
Yeah, do we have this volume, this scene?
Well, it's an FBX file. It's an FBX, so you're good to go. Right? I'm going to give you a preview of what you will be working with. Right, so this is pretty much what you're going to be expecting. I haven't unveiled this assignment yet. You know, it's in like, you know, like how they release software and they have the alpha and the beta. So it's like it's in the beta release stage. So, but anyway, in this time around, you have 10 cinematic camera movements that you're going to be doing using the virtual camera. And you can choose any one of these environments that you want to use. All right. So that is what the assignment is going to look like when it gets unveiled. Okay, now by default, when you open TwinMotion, it gives you a background and a base and a sky by default. So right now, if I look around, you might not see nothing much because, and that's really because the site that I've imported is actually below the 0 axis. So the ground is actually covering it. So usually the first thing I do, I just delete this ground. And the background, I usually don't normally work with the background because it's a little too, well, it's a bit common. That's the first thing. And the next thing, it's a little too big city style. Sometimes
I think you can change it in sir. You can choose different backgrounds.
right, and you can change it, but meaning your own background or pre-made backgrounds? You mean pre-made?
Pre-made.
Right, exactly. And there's really not much to choose from. But guess what? We have some tips that I'm going to be sharing with you. They're not rules for you to follow. They're just tips based on, you know, on how I do visualization. So you can use them if you want or not. All right, so this is the site that you have. Let's look around. It's pretty okay. Kind of zoom out a little bit so you can see it. You can, I think you have about 4 or 5 main areas. You have a little area here. You have a little area here. Maybe here. Here is also good. And then you have an area here. So you can pretty much plop your building wherever you seem fit. Now, this is not about site placements. We're not going to be doing site analysis and all this stuff. This is just about achieving the 5 cinematic camera angles. And you're just going to put your building in a place that you think best works with how you achieve that. All right. All right. Now, right now, walk forward here a little bit. Okay, right, guys. All right, so now the first thing you want to do is just to determine where you want to place your building on the site, or even if you want to use this site, right? I tested it out a little bit and I placed my buildings in different positions. One of them I kind of placed here because I love this little park element that's right here. All of these elements are on layers and everything, or they should be at least. So if I click this object here, remember the menu on the right tells you more statistical stuff about your scene. So it's telling me my frames per second, and then it's telling me all these objects that I have in my scene. Might seem a bit plentiful, but everything is located in this icon here. So if I actually highlight this folder here, I can actually move my entire site around like that, because all the objects are located under this element. I'm sorry, I don't have sub-objects. When the scene came over, it just comes as one kind of subfolder, but that's okay. Now, you don't need to spend any time like, don't spend too much time, fixing up the scene. I optimized it as best I could for you guys. These are different grass planes here that we can use to put lawns at, and some chairs and stuff, so you can add people, and relatively easy. I don't want you to spend too much time modeling, because this is not a modeling class. Instead, what I want to set to encourage you to do is, in the movie world, they would call it set dressing, right? I guess we more refer to the composition. And this is what I want to talk to you about, that whenever you get to the stage where, let's say you're doing your studio project and you have your 3D model and you have your site, you need to have a site. Some of you might invest a lot of time developing your site, meaning in 3D. You might put on all the roads and all these things. But at the end of the day, you're going to end up choosing specific shots that work for your building. Now, I want to push you a bit further now to identify specific animated shots that work for your building. Not just images, but animated shots. I'm going to show you some tips in how you can achieve that. All right, let's take a look on the other site before we commit. Let me give you a tour of the other site. Well, before I give you a tour, let me at least import one building in here to just show you what that's like. So I'm going to go back to import. I'm going to go to open, and you guys, you should have the buildings available to you. All you need to do is download it from the mirror board. I've downloaded the 4 buildings here. Which building should I pick? Let me pick building 4. Which building is building 4? That's this one. Okay. I'm gonna pick building 7 since it has an interesting kind of facade. I'll pick building 7. I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to import. Building should import pretty quickly. All right. Now, when your building comes in, well, it should be scaled. I think I prepared most of that for you guys. Of course, this building comes in at the 0 plane. Remember, the site was below the 0 plane. Also, notice on this side on our menu here, over here, if I scroll all the way to the top and minimize this, you will notice I have 2 folders now. I have one that represents all the object for the site and one that represents all the object for the building. So if I select the folder for the building, I can move. Let's do this again. It's one item. Okay. Minimize that. Click on that. Right. And then I can move this building around, which is pretty cool. All right. So one of the next things that I want to do, I wish there was a way I could use this mouse much quicker. It's so slow. So slow. Anyway, so let's delete this ground base here, and let's position this building. Now, in figuring out where you want the building to go, I am going to maybe rotate it. Maybe I shouldn't be, well, anyway, I'm just going to do this now, all right? I could put the building over here. Where do you guys think the building should go? Some buildings might work better in other places. So for example, This building is a bit long, so it maybe doesn't work quite so well in this area here. Maybe I can fit it in the park area. All right, it seems to fit there. That's pretty good. I can also put it over here. Let me put it along here. This looks pretty cool. Maybe I shouldn't be using one building because everybody would now want to follow the positioning of this building. But, you know, that's okay. You guys have your own imagination. So if you want to follow, you can. If not, you don't have to. Yeah, that looks pretty okay. What do you guys think? Guys, you there?
Looks good.
Okay, cool. So now that the building is positioned roughly, I want to talk about some of the things that you would normally do. I think in any program, but in this one, it's going to be geared towards TwinMotion, right? So the first thing is that, well, I'm not really a fan of the background, so I'm going to change that. So I'm going to go over here and go down to settings, and I'm going to go to location and go to background, and I think I'm going to choose none. Now, one of the really nice features that TwinMotion 2022, I think it came in from 20, no, it's 22, is you now have a sky dome. Or did I forget where you find that? Oh, and the lighting, right. So before, you kind of had to work with this kind of clear sky, and then you have the sun position there. And of course, you can move the sun around. Oops, and below. So for example, I could go to location, and I could go to north offset and kind of just offset where the north is. I could go to time of day, but I'm not, let's see. So if I wanted a kind of a sunset vibe, I would do like that. And then I would just offset my north, because this doesn't really exist anywhere. So I'm not going to be using the month setting. So I can just kind of offset that to set my appropriate angle, which is cool. However, one new feature that has come on board now is the ability to use sky domes. Anybody here ever tried the sky dome feature? Nobody?
No, sir.
So remember how we spoke about how TwinMotion came about? It kind of took a slice of the Unreal Engine pizza and just took one slice and handed it over to the architectural industry and say, okay, here, you can have a slice of a game engine. See how you like it. So what keeps happening is that they keep taking more and more slices from the bigger pizza, which is the Unreal Engine application, and injecting some more. Now, sky domes was usually a feature that was reserved for high-end visualization software. So for example, if I'm using V-Ray with 3D Max, or I'm doing Blender, or I'm using, I don't remember what that other engine is called, Corona. Usually a feature like using a high dynamic range image, HDR, right, is normally used to help light a scene. And a HDR is used because it gives more realistic lighting. And I did give an example of a HDR image a long time ago, which I suspect a lot of you will probably forget because that was from DDM days. Anybody remember that example where I showed you a HDR image? No?
No.
Most definitely not. Okay, so to give you an idea what HDR is, a good website to go to is HDR Heaven. won't spend too much time on this because we only have like 2 hours here. But is it HDR Heaven or Heaven HDR? I don't even, or HDR Haven. Maybe it's Haven. No, I'm pretty sure it was, unless they changed that. Oh, they look like they changed their company name or something. No, this doesn't look like them. Yeah, it looks like they changed their company name. Anyway, these are what HDRs are. They're basically images that are taken with a camera, high dynamic range image. And what that means is that the image itself is so bright that, let's see, the brightest that you can get on a computer screen is 255, a value of 255. The darkest you can get is a value of 0. So an HDR image can go more than 255. But on a computer screen, you're not going to notice that because it's just going to look white if you try to look on a HDR image. But what's really happening is that the HDR is so bright that it now casts light, right? So it's brighter than white, so it starts to cast light. So what professional renders do is they put this big globe over their model, and because the globe is glowing, it actually is casting light into the scene. But because it's a photograph of a real image, it casts a more realistic distribution of light. Hence, the picture look more real. So people who focus in 3D visualization would normally use HDR to light a scene. Programs like Lumion and TwinMotion don't use HDR because it's more complicated to understand and all of that. However, they did take another slice, and they did insert the ability to use sky domes, which is an HDR image. So we're going to use that. We're going to turn it on. And when we turn on this sky dome, it's going to take a little while to load. You will notice you have an actual sky. Now, some of you might look and say, okay, it looks different, a little different. And you're right, because it's lit a little bit differently. But the thing about it,
that's like a similar thing to real skies in Lumion.
Right. Yes. I think I remember reading about that, where Lumion has this feature they call real skies, right?
Yeah, because they have the normal one and then they have real skies, which give a more like dramatic finish in contrast and so on.
Right. And the thing, I think it's probably doing the same thing. I haven't dived too much into Lumion. It's probably doing the same thing. But what happening is that your image is now being lit by not only the sun and this kind of ambient light, but it is being lit by the sky itself, which is what happens in real life. So things are a little tricky when you choose a HDR though, because when you choose what they call it, a sky dome. Because now if you try to move your sun, so for example, when you go back to your settings and location, notice that you can't rotate your sun anymore. You can't really set the time of day either. It doesn't work. And the reason for that is it wouldn't be realistic. Your sun has to be positioned. Remember that this is an image, right? This dome is a photograph. So that photograph was taken at a particular time of day. Hence, the sun is at a particular angle in that photograph. So if you move the sun, it's going to look weird. Weird is the best way I can explain it. Because if I kind of zoom out and you look on this image that's here in the background, you know, it would be, okay, let me tell you what I mean. If I override this setting, like if you say, you know what, I don't care, I need to move my sun. You can go into lighting and in Sky Dome, and you can where do you switch it off again? Oh, match sun, you can turn that off. And you know what happens now is that you can really go in now and change your sun angle and your time of day, but it's going to be kind of weird. So for example, this is a sunset, which gives you long shadows, but it doesn't look like a sunset, obviously, because you know, it looks like the middle of the day, but yet still the sun is giving you this weird angle. You know, reality just doesn't work like that, right? So that is why once you enable the sky dome feature, it normally locks the sun with the dome. Now, the trick is that you have to select a dome that has the kind of lighting that you want. So now you have to go into you go into the dome settings and you see those are the settings on the left over here. And just to tell you where you find it, you open up your settings and you look for domes, and there they are. So morning and afternoon, noon, low sun. Let's go for a low sun, and let's go for a low sun cloudy day. And then you get all of these sky domes here. Now, all of these, they're really just photographs, and they have the sun at different angles. So let me go for this one here, and I'm going to have to download it. Now, if you're using TwinMotion, you're going to have to sign in order to download these, because these are not pre-installed in the program. And maybe it's a good thing, because the program itself is like 30 gigs. So if these sky domes were there, they would be pretty large, right? Anyway, all right. So moving on, I won't go too much into sky domes, but notice that it's still downloading and I have a relatively good internet connection. One HDR image, just to give you an idea while I wait for this thing to download. There we go. It's still downloading, believe it or not. Okay, so these are some HDR files here. And so for example, look at this file. This file is 300 megabytes big. That's the size of HDR file. So they can be really, really big. The average HDR file is like above 40 megs, going to 100 megs to even 300 megs. So when you download these skies, they tend to be a little on the larger side. All right, is it done? Oh, that's it. Do I have to drag it down? Oh, I do have to drag it. Okay. I thought they would just apply it without me having to drag it. Okay. All right, and then you wait for that to load. So when you carry in your model, a good thing to do would be to kind of set up your lighting, right? Now, if you look at how this scene is lit now, it looks like it belongs here, like the lighting fits with the image, right? All right, so what I can do with the HDR though is that I can, with the dome, I can change the rotation. So for example, I can get a nice kind of shot like that going, you know, something like that, which kind of matches with the sky and the sun and all that. All right, so good stuff. Now, if you remember what we talked about the last time, when we talked about the angle, when you're taking images, notice I haven't even added materials yet. I'm just talking about the cinematic camera angles. Now, if I have my light coming in that direction, the best way to kind of arrange my view would be kind of this way. Now, luckily in a virtual scene, you can control the sun. Remember, we spoke about scenarios where when you go out there to take a picture, it might just be a scenario where the sun does not working with how you're taking the picture. So if I decided that, no, you know, actually, I like a picture this way, then you're really looking in the same, kind of in the same direction of the sun, which will make everything be in a kind of shade. So if you're looking that way, maybe, you know, the best angle to kind of look is this way so that you have a nice contrast. Remember that rule? You try to go 90 degrees from each other. I'm thinking this sun is a little too low. I might want to change that. But it takes so long to download a new image, so I don't want to go for that right now. Now, the next thing that I'm suggesting that you do is whenever you want to capture a cinematic camera movement, try and capture that as an image first. So before I even start to add people and, you know, detail and cars and trees and all that stuff, I would kind of try to determine, you know, where is the best place for me to experience this architecture, what I want to show. And then I would configure my scene to enhance that experience. Rather than doing it the other way around, where I add a bunch of trees and people, and then I try to get my views. So that's another common, I would call that misconception. You can, you know, work like that, but as I say, I'm only giving you tips here based on what I have come to realize. You can use it if you want or discard it if you want. So I normally suggest that you set up your lighting just a little bit to kind of get the feel of what you want. Then you set up your camera views, your ideal camera views. Don't set up your animated views before you set up your still image views, right? And there's a reason why I suggest it that way. Usually, an animated view works best when it is generated from a view that was a still image. So what do I mean by that? So let's say I want to set up, let's say this is a nice image of my building here because I want to highlight the front and the side, right? So what I would do, I would go down to the media section. I would go to images and I would add a new image. Now how TwinMotion works is that once I'm inside of this image, I am editing things for just this image. So for example, if I want to tweak this slightly to the right, and I'm going to click this icon here to update this image. When I come out of media editing mode, I can move around as much as I want. But when I click back on this image here, it will take me back to how I set up the camera view. So you can kind of think of this as a camera view, kind of, you know, that lets you tweak things for just this view. So let's say that this is one of the views that I want here. I'm going to name my view. So every time you move it, you need to click the reload button, by the way. So I'm going to click the reload here. I'm going to name this. I'm going to rename it. Call it, I don't know, view of building front. I'm going to go into more and maybe set up some more things here. So for example, let's say that I think a different camera angle works best for this view. So I can go in here and I can change the rotation a little bit. Yeah, this view also kind of works. I'm 90 degrees. Am I? No, I'm kind of right behind the sun. So I'm not going to get much shadows. Now I can, there's so much tips to show, but tried working with that view. So let's say that's the sun that I want for this view. I can also change stuff like my white balance, like if it's looking too orange and all of that. But the next thing I'm going to change is I'm going to change my camera. I'm going to turn on parallelism. And what that will do is that will let all of my vertical lines be straight. Remember, this is the feature that we did in, what was that program name? Darktable, where we learned how to make the verticals straight. But this has a built-in ability to do that. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk to you about is your frame of view, right? Your FOV. Now, I think I'd ask a question if anybody owns a camera. I think I got an answer where nobody has anybody here have an actual camera? Like a standalone camera?
I think Mayan had said he had it.
Yeah. I think it
Oh,
was-
right. Right. Yeah, Nelson. Do you remember what lens you have for your camera? Nelson, you here? All right, probably not. But for those of you who have a camera, you might notice that some of them come with interchangeable lens. Now, your phone also comes with a lens, you know, but it's for those of you who have a modern phone, you would maybe have two lenses, and you would see where, because it has like two cameras on the back or three, depending. Now, the lens determine your frame of view. I don't know if you've ever tried to use your phone to take a picture of a bathroom area. You know, you realize that that area looks really, really small. And sometimes you realize that the lens that you have is not wide enough to capture that tiny area. So you have to get what's called a wide angle lens, right? Now, some phones come with two lenses. They come with one that's called a telephoto lens, and some that's called a prime lens, and some that's called wide angle lens. I think you hear the term wide angle a lot because that's a very popular lens, which basically it allows the image to look a bit more skewed, but it allows you to see more of the building. So for example, if you look at this photograph that I took of some interior spaces. This was kind of put it up here. There we go. So that is a bathroom image that I took, right? And these are some architectural photographs that I took here. Now this is a wide angle lens because this bathroom is so small. If you can look here, along here, and you look at the length of the toilet here. Can you guys see where the image is being skewed almost out of proportion?
That's TwinMotion.
No, this is a photograph. This is an actual photograph. So you can see how... So for example, this bathroom here, you can kind of see when it comes to the end here, it's really skewed. And that's because when I was capturing images of these small spaces, I need to have a wide angle lens. So wide angle lens allows an image to look skewed. But guess what? I'm glad you asked the question if it's TwinMotion, because there's a psychological thing that happened to us when we choose lens. Now, the human eye is the same as a 35mm lens, right? A 35mm lens sees things at the same frame of view of your eyeballs. The human eyeball does not see things at 10mm, 15mm. Now, this image was taken by I think it was a 10mm lens or less, which means it looks really skewed. Now, who asked the question a while ago if it's TwinMotion?
I did.
Oh, yeah, Ricardo, right. Now, one of the reasons why it looks like it's virtual is not only because of how it looks, but because of the level of skew. Because we know subconsciously that the human eyeball doesn't see an image like that. Subconsciously, we assume that it is a digital rendering. It's a really profound thing. So, for example,
Well, actually, that make me ask, and also the fact of the hyperlight, the hyperlight.
Right. So let's look at an image like this. This image was taken with something closer to 35 millimeters. I think it was like 25 millimeters, which is just shy of the frame of view of what the human eye will show, right? Now, when you look at this image, it is a little bit more believable because it is not as skewed. So the more skewed an image is the more information you see, but the less realistic it looks. It's a bit weird or over skewed. But we normally skew an image so that we can take in more in the shot. So the more we get closer to 35 millimeters is the more realistic our image will look. And that is why sometimes when you see a rendering up close, like this example that I showed earlier, when I showed these images like this, one of the reasons that it looks real, apart from the fact that, you know, it uses realistic textures, is that it's not a skewed image. The lens that's used is pretty much a 35 millimeter lens, meaning that if you were here walking in this area, this is what your eyeballs would see. Now, you know, subconsciously we know this, and some of us are aware that subconsciously we know this, and some of us are not. So if you choose a rendering, so for example, in our TwinMotion scene here, if we use a lens that is closer to the human eye, it is the more believable our renderings will look. Now, obviously, if your renderings have cartoon textures, then it's not going to look real, but still, the lens that you use add to the believability. So for example, if I change my frame of view to something that is very skewed like that, right? I mean, this is a little bit ridiculous, like, you know, that's overkill, but that automatically does not look real because we just don't see the world like that. I mean, if you're an ant or an insect, then maybe I think that's what they see in their eyes, but we don't see the world like that. Now, your frame of view or lens is measured in two ways. It is measured by the millimeter, or it is measured as a FOV angle. And this stuff that I'm telling you goes whether you're using Lumion, TwinMotion, or a real camera. On your camera, it's measured in millimeters. So when you buy a phone, it will tell you that it has a wide angle lens of 10 millimeters, and it has a prime lens of 50 millimeters, and it has a telephoto lens of 100 millimeters. So what does this mean? Well, you know what wide angle means already. Wide angle means, you know, worm's eye. You can see more around you, you know, wide, but it's more skewed. A prime lens, prime means, well, prime kind of means that you can't adjust it. But prime lenses are usually closer to what the eyeballs see. They're usually around 50 millimeter. Your eyeballs see about 35 though. So when you look at a picture that's taken with a 50 millimeter lens, it will look a little more believable. I don't think I have any image here that's taken with, I think this one was taken with a prime lens a little bit. No, not that one. No, I don't have any that's taken with a 50 millimeter lens. But anyway, Now, when you get to a telephoto lens is like when you see those close-up images of like a rose, where you can see the rose clear and you see like the background is blurred, right? So that's what a telephoto lens is. It's those persons that you see at football games with these huge lens that can zoom right down to like the players' eyeballs, right? So that's telephoto. So as that relates to your frame of view, the lower the frame of view angle, you get closer to telephoto. And the higher the frame of view angle, you get closer to wide angle. Now, a good point that you can use is that I think is what, 45 degrees is equal to what your eyeballs see, right? So if I should switch my frame of view here to 45 degrees, that is what your eyeballs will see when you're standing at this distance away from the building. So if I kind of walk back a little bit and I'm on the, road, looking at this building, this is what my eyeballs will see. And I don't know if some of you might agree or disagree, but it looks a little bit more realistic, not in terms of the textures, but in terms of what you are, how you are experiencing the view of the building. What do you guys think? Does it? Anybody there?
Yes, sir. I feel like it tilts a little more though.
Right. No, actually, I just checked on it to make sure. 30 field of view, it's more 37. Yeah, that is more. I mean, anywhere from 45 to 37. I mean, it's kind of close. So this is what your human eye would see. Now, usually when the average camera that we have, the average regular camera, not a SLR camera, your phone without any old phone that has a camera, the average typical camera would have about a 24 millimeter lens. And 24 millimeter lens is about equal to, I'm trying to remember what these things are. In 24 is about 73. Is about 73. Right. So if I should take a picture of this camera, if I was walking by this building and I hold up my phone and take a picture, this is what the building would look like. So I'm telling you this so that you know when you're setting up your cinematic camera angles, you know, depending on the look that you're going for, if you're going for something that feels real and you want it to feel that way, then you would need to go closer to what your eyeballs would see. If you want to go for something that is a little bit more imaginative, you know, you would go at higher FOV, which is closer to what a wide angle lens would take, right? So 24 or rather 73 FOV is like the middle ground. It's like the nice middle ground. 180, that's like really skewed, crazy skewed. I would say about 100 would be, yeah, that would be like, you know, where you start to see things jutting out at you. So I'm going to work with, I am going to work with maybe 70. I mean, you can really just adjust this to, oops, gone too low. Adjust this to how you see him fit. So I'm going to, and you have to remember, the more skewed you get is the more things start to look bigger than they actually are. In some cases that might be good, in some cases it might be bad. So let's say I want to have a shot like this, and this is my first shot now. So then that's my first shot. Let's add a second shot here. And let's say that, let's see now, let me try to find out this one. How about, let's say that I had a park here and I wanted to show that you can walk to a side entrance of the building. So, you know, in using my kind of rule of thirds, I want to have this bench in the foreground. I'm trying to get it right, but this thing is so awkward. So let's say I have this bench in the foreground and I want to show that building in the background, right? So remember, these are some of the composition tips that we've been learning thus far. All right, and I want to, so let's say that is the shot, that the next shot that I want. I'm going to go to my, let's go to my camera and adjust my FOV. I want it to go closer to realistic, so I'm going to be making it less. So maybe something like that. So the closer that I go to my eyeball is the more realistic that this would be. I want to catch the end of the edge of the building right there, but I also want to catch the entrance right here. So I'm trying to like narrow it down. All right, good. And I can do some other things, like I can turn on my depth of field. So things that are in the foreground is a bit blurry. Now, this is a little weird in these programs because if you are a person that is used to cameras, you want to see, you know, things that you can set like aperture and shutter speed. But pretty much in this, you just have this, oops, where did I change that? You just have this distance that you really set. So whether you want the foreground to be blurry or the background, which is just, this is just kind of weird, a kind of a weird value. But anyway, I'll work with that for now. All right, so I'm going to just save this shot. All right, so I'm just going to work with 2 for now because in the interest of time, I might need to continue. Now, notice that these are just images that I have selected. But what I'm going to do now is animate these images. So for example, this view here now, I'm going to go over to media and go to video. And then I'm going to create a video that kind of uses or starts from where this image, what this image gave me. So I'm going to do a nice view that starts from here. And maybe this is, I'll do maybe a push-pull. I'll do a push-in. So I'm going to kind of start from where the camera left off like that. And I'm going to click the plus button here. And I'm going to kind of push in and kind of look up a little bit. Kind of like, come on. Kind of like that. I refresh this image here. So this is what my animation would look like. So it's a slight push in, but the push in started from an image. So because it started from an image, I find that you get a better result when you start from an image rather than just trying to jump in and do an animation. All right, let's try one more. Let's try it with the second image. So I'm going to go back to media, go to image. I'm going to choose this image here, right? And what I'm going to do here, I'm going to do a parallax. Will that work? I don't know. Let's see. What do I want to do here? I can do a pullout. Let's try a pullout and see how that works. So I'm going to go over to my media. I'm going to go to video. I'm going to create a new video. And this is because I'm going to do a pull out. What I'm going to do, I'm going to start from closer like that. And then I'm going to end where my image was taken, kind of like that. Let's update that there. Oh, this is actually a push-in. Oops, can I flip this around? That's what I hate about these things. I don't have much options to do that. Anyway, so I ended up doing another push-in, but that's okay. Come on. I didn't update this image. Okay. So that's where I want to end. And I want to start this first image up close like that. Choose update. There we go. Let me hit play now. So this now is a pullout that kind of pulls out very slowly and kind of ends with the seat in the foreground. So as you can see, I created 2 of my virtual camera views, and I create them from choosing still images, right? So this is a technique that I encourage you guys to try out. Now, notice that I still haven't even, let me exit media mode. I haven't added my my people and trees and all these things yet, but now is where I would actually start to put them in. And this is the stuff that can really save you time. So for example, I know I had this view of the front, so I might want to detail this front area now. So I'm going to go over to my left menu, and I'm going to add, let me go to landscapes. No, not landscapes. Let me go to trees, rocks. Cool. Let me go to rocks. Let me try out some rocks here. Maybe that's a bit big, but I can always change the size. And let me add in a tree for good measure. I'm going to pick something that's not too big. Maybe like a nice little park. Looking tree. Yeah, these trees are not that big. Yeah, let me try. Oh, that one is weird. It's weird. It's weird. That one is a bit big. It's kind of okay. This is kind of okay. I'm gonna try one of these. I'm gonna try this one. All right, good. Now, when I start to place these trees now, I mean, I'm not gonna like just spread trees everywhere. Instead, I'm going to be a little bit more targeted. And what I'm gonna do is switch back to my image view here. And I'm going to look around. Okay, there goes my rocks and stuff. So I'm going to actually place this within my view. Okay, let me go back to this view. There we go. Let's move this down a little bit, and I'm going to rotate it a little bit like that. And then I'm going to grab this tree here and carry this tree over just a little bit more. All right. All right, so notice what I'm doing now is I'm just kind of setting up my view based on this image that I have here. So before I start to just add trees and stuff wildly everywhere, I'm actually now placing my trees in a very targeted way. Carry this back just a bit. There we go. And I think especially with architecture that to save yourself a lot of work, because if I didn't have a view like this, there will be no need for me to be putting a bunch of trees and stuff here because I have no views in this section of the building. My view is actually in this section. So it makes sense that I start to detail this section first. And then what happens now is that you can even see how that works with your animation. You know, where you start to set up your views even before you have to start doing any heavy lifting and like adding details to everywhere in your model pointlessly. So like this grass patch here, you know, maybe what I can do is add some grass to this area here because my view is focused in this area. I'm going to go back and I'm going to go to vegetation and go to grass. Oh, autosave is kicking in. That's a good thing. All right, let me pick one of this grass here and I'm going to go over to my context settings and go to scatter. Grab this grass down here and I'm gonna just kind of scatter this grass in this area here. I don't know if you can kind of see it. And I'm just like clicking multiple times to scatter the grass in here. My computer should survive, hopefully. All right. All right, lovely. Let's close that up. Let me click on this grass and go to settings. I could adjust the height a little bit more. There we go. All right. So now if I go back to my camera view, you can kind of see where this is kind of going. Now, the thing is, because the camera is behind me and it's a bit low, you're not really getting to really see it. But now I can tweak my view a little bit. Like I can say, okay, maybe I need to be seeing more of the ground. So I can go to this shot and I can tweak it slightly to kind of look down a little bit like that and update. Like that. So this is my push in shot. All right, so I guess you could call this part one because we are, right. So we are pretty much out of time, guys. But do you guys understand some of what we were saying? Some of what I was saying about being more targeted with when you're setting up visuals for your architecture? Guys, you with me?
Yes, sir.
Right. If you look at this entire scene, all I've added is really a rock and a tree. And the reason for that is, as I said, it makes no sense unless you're going to do like an aerial shot where you need to be seeing a bunch of stuff. But you know, I mean, you could work your way, you could work from an aerial view and then throw on a bunch of details here and there. Or you could start from a more personalized view and throw your details in just for that personalized views. Even an aerial view, like let's say that you're doing a shot like this. Maybe you're doing a tilt down shot where you kind of, where you kind of do something like that, or you can kind of tilt down like this. I mean, if you're not going to be seeing all of this area down here, there's no need in detailing all of that area like that. So this is one of the tips that I want to teach you guys to do, to try to just detail just the areas that you're going to see, so that you don't use your very precious time adding all of these details to other areas of the building that you're not going to see in your views or in your cinematic animation. All right, so we're going to continue this next time around, and we will try out the other scene. We'll place a building in the other scene. What I'm expecting from you guys next week is that you will have your TwinMotion or Lumion or Enscape ready. And I'm going to officially unveil the curtain from the final assignment next week, you know, after this crazy week from you guys. Okay, I just want to kind of introduce you to what you should expect for the assignment 4. Okay, so that has been our class. Any questions or concerns thus far?
Sir, can I speak to you after everybody is gone?
Okay. All right, anybody else? Everybody should have access to TwinMotion, right? Remember, you can.
Just a question after class too.
Okay.
So you could use Lumion too, right?
Yes, you can use Lumion. You can use Enscape. And remember, there are a couple more guys on the block. There is Omniverse. Omniverse is a new kid on the block, totally new, by NVIDIA. And Chaos Cloud or something like that. And another one called something 7. Need to try and remember them. So yes, any one of these applications you can use. All right, as long as you get to do the cinematic camera angles. So for next week, I want you to have those applications ready. We're going to insert some of our building models in class. Maybe I ask some of you to post some screenshots of how you build, where you plan to place your building, you know, and the kind of shots that you want to get. But I want you, guys, I want you to play, it's about the cinematic camera angles. So I want you to consider where you can put the building so that you have some nice shots, some shots that communicate something interesting, like maybe an entryway or a framing shot, or it captures some kind of repetition with the architecture. Just something interesting, not just a shot that you just plop down like that. All right. Okay, this is where I leave you guys. So I will see you next week. Good luck with your study tour. I'm looking forward to that presentation and some awesome footage, right? No pressure. All right, so 2 people said they needed to speak to me, which is Kennedy and Sandra. So everyone else, you guys are free to go. I'll see you next week. All right, let me talk to Kennedy.